friends, welcome back to Hello Friends, the Mr. Robot Review Show. Welcome to Project Potter. My name is Kyle. This is episode 27, A Little Push, because as we see in season 3, as we see in the series, sometimes it just takes a little push for some big series of events to take place, and that's what happens in this episode, some for better and some for worse. So, that being said, like I said, this is the Mr. Robot Review Show. I'm not going to get into the whole spiel, but real quickly, what we're going to be doing, a quick recap of the episode, a score, a white rose. You guys know the deal. It's 27 episodes in now. This is season 3, episode 6. If you remember, guys, last episode I said it was the best episode of Mr. Robot so far. Today I gave a perfect 10 out of 10. This one comes pretty damn close. I'm just going to let you know now. But with that being said, the plot is illusion. I'm not going to spend too much time because this is kind of just, there's just big set pieces really throughout this episode, but we're not really like switching too many things around. But yeah, kind of quick recapping here. So the beginning of the episode, we see a young Angela. They're watching a Back to the Future animated show, which I have never seen, but I have seen the Back to the Future movies. So that was a fun little kind of nod there. And Christian Slater, Mr. Robot, comes over, Elliot's dad, of course, when he's still alive, to a young Angela, and he says, you know, like, Angela's mom is over in the corner here, who looks exactly like Angela, so they did a good job with the casting there. But, you know, Angela's watching the show, and he's like, hey, you know, why don't you go say hi to your mom or whatever? And she's like, I don't want to. Like, I really don't want to. And he's like, you know, Mr. Robot sits down, and he tells Angela this story. He's like, you know, Back to the Future, he's like, I think George, sorry, I've only seen the movie a couple times, so shame on me. But I think the dad's name is George, but basically, of course, the spoilers, the plot to Back to the Future is that, like, he goes back in time and he sees his dad, and he, like, gives his dad the courage to talk to his, or take his future mom, like, to the dance or whatever. So, and, like, if he had never done that, then, you know, the son would have never been born. I'm sorry, I'm kind of botching Back to the Future. This isn't a Back to the Future review show, but the basic premise is that he says, you know, sometimes you just need a little push. And he's like, he tells Angela, you know, if Elliot ever needs my help, like in the future, he's like, and if I can't be there for him, he's like, please give him the push that he needs. And yeah, this kind of is the theme where it's like a lot of characters in this show just sometimes need a little push for the events to happen. So he does give young Angela the courage to go talk to her mom. We actually get a great, I guess it's foreshadowing or maybe a callback, I don't really know, but it's cool because the lawyer that Angela ends up working with, we find out in this episode that she actually is the one who was working with her mom, taking down the Washington Township plan at the very end, or going against E-Corp. You know, Angela's mom says, like, you know, I'm dying, I want to spend the rest of my days around my family and friends. She's like, you know, I'm gonna die either way. She's like, just, I don't want to go forward with the case. You know, like I would just want to, you know, enjoy the last of my days. And young Angela finally goes over, and she's like, hey, this is weird. And Angela's mom goes, weird how? And she's like, then I'm dying. And she's like, don't say that. And it's like, it's very real and it's very sad. But Angela's mom actually tells her, you know, this isn't the end. She's like, I believe in a world where we can all, you know, be together, and, you know, you're going to see me again. And it's funny because, like, this is the idea that White Rose really has installed into Angela, where she's like, there is another world out there, kind of the multiverse theory, where she's like, this isn't the end. Like, there is another, like, universe. And, you know, that's what White Rose's MO is. Like, we're going to get into that more, like, down the line. But, you know, that's, we know that White Rose is working on some sort of machine, and the township plant goes into that. And again, I don't want to spoil anything going ahead for anyone who hasn't seen the show. If you're watching for the first time, welcome aboard. So I'm not gonna dive into that too much, because I do want to at the finale, the final episode, we're gonna kind of go over all those theories and all that. But that is kind of White Rose's MO, is that there is another universe, whether it's a multiverse or another life or the afterlife or whatever you want to call it. But White Rose is a big believer that this is not the only life. And so it's interesting to see Angela's mom kind of install that into her. She's like, I need you to believe with me. Can you believe with me? And Angela, like, kind of believes it, kind of begrudgingly, but it's like, it's really interesting to see that. We jump ahead to present day, guys, and you know we still got the stage 2 attack that's going down. Elliot's still trying to stop it. It's really cool in the beginning because we cut from young Angela, zooms in our face, and then we're right back to where the last episode kicked off, where Elliot is at Angela's office. The attack is still going on, and Elliot's like, Angela, I need you to tell me what's going on. Like he's like, what? I saw you in the server room. He's like, whatever you got from that computer. He's like, I need you to give it to me now. And she's like, I already gave it to the hamburger guy. She's like, I'm sorry, his hamburger was so delicious. Like, I couldn't resist. She didn't say that, obviously, but she's like, I already delivered it. Like, it's already been given to Dark Army. And Elliot, like, you know, the riders come in, they're still breaking shit. They go in the office, and he closes the door, and the music's going, and Elliot's, like, wide-eyed, and Rami's so good in this, really through this episode, but really in this one scene where Angela's, like, she's very, like, glazed over, and she's, like, brainwashed, and she's like, no, we need today to happen. And Elliot like slams her against the wall, and he's like, Angela, I need you to tell me exactly what's happening. He's like, how long have you been working with Tyrell? Where's Tyrell? It's like, and poor Elliot, man, he thought he could trust Darlene. She's working with the FBI. He thought he could trust Angela. I've talked about this in the past, and he can't trust anybody. He doesn't know which way is up. And you know, we see he's fighting with Mr. Robot too to gain control, or losing control, I should say. Elliot actually does say later in the episode, he's like, am I losing control, or is he gaining control, or both? It's crazy. But, you know, Angela's like, we need to let today happen. And he's like, he really screams in her face, and he's like, Angela, people are going to die. And she's like, no, they're going to evacuate the building. Elliot eventually does call in a bomb threat. He goes down to the recovery building, because he's like, the only way to stop this is to actually go in the recovery building. He's like, there's a fire suppression system. He's like, if I can get to that, that's going to, you know, make it impossible for that spark to go off. It's not going to blow up the building. The day is saved. So that's kind of what Elliot's trying to do the whole time. He goes down to the recovery building, and he actually finds out that the fire department's there. They've already swept the building, and they're like, you know, false alarm. He's like, everyone, it's okay to go back in, which makes perfect sense. I mean, when you get a bomb threat, they did evacuate the building. They swept it. Elliot here realizes, like, shit, I called in a bomb threat with no bomb. So he's like, of course they're not going to find anything. And he's like, no. He's like, everyone needs to get out. And they're like, no, dude, there's no bomb. I was like, it's all good. It was a false alarm. And it's like, shit, it wasn't a false alarm, because he knows what is really going to happen. So he needs to get into the building, and he's like, wait, if I can get in there, like I said, he can get the fire suppression. This is the one nitpick in this episode, I think. Elliot is able to like stand in line, and they're like, okay, badge is ready. You have to scan your badge basically to confirm that you're an employee. You can get back in the building. And he like easily pickpockets a security guy's badge. And I was like, all right, this is, I mean, I know those things are kind of loose, but I was like, this is a little weird. But again, the show is so good that you have to really, like, the little things we're nitpicking, or I'm nitpicking, I should say, but it's just because, like, it's so flawless outside of that it's like, if I have to pick something, it's like, all right, well, realistically, could he have just done that? Like, would someone behind him have been like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you stealing a security guard's badge? But also in the day-to-day, again, there was a moment last week, I forget, something happened where I'm like, this seems sketchy. Oh, Elliot was trying to get into the access, and his badge wasn't working because his access was cut off. And Angela actually has a line in this episode where she says, like, Mr. Alderson, I'm sorry, but you're not supposed to be on this floor. You were let go today. And it's like, man, she is full zombie mode. Like, she is poor Angela. The Angela that Elliot knows is gone. It's really sad. But going back to Elliot, he gets in the building, and then there's just a great sequence where he's running around. He goes to the conference room. He starts like getting in there, doing the code. There's like a blue, like a tuna fish maybe. Fish are not my best. Fish are kind of like a theme in this episode. Actually, it goes from we're gonna call it tuna fish. I don't know if it is, but it goes from that. It's like a blue background. He's in the conference room, and then we get like this glitchy effect, which we see the whole episode basically. And Elliot is thrown. He's literally like in the hacking process, and he's thrown into a cab, and he's like, what the hell is going on here? And that's like, there's like 3 goldfish, and the taxi is like, hey, you don't get a lot of business, you know, ever since the 5-9 hack. It's nice of you to like, you know, come in here. And he's like, where the hell are we going? And she's like, the address that you told me 5 seconds ago. He's like, stop the damn car. And Elliot's telling us like, Mr. Robot took over. I'm losing like 15 minutes. He's like, 15 minutes is okay, but I can make up for 15 minutes. But he's also like, I don't know when the attack's gonna happen. He's like, the spark could happen at any moment. I could have 30 seconds. I could have 2 hours. He's like, I don't know. But he's like, stop the damn car. And she's like, all right. And he like gets out, and he starts sprinting back to the recovery building. And this is the theme where Elliot is losing control and Mr. Robot's taking over. And it's great because it's like he lost 15 minutes, he lost 3 minutes, and it's like he's trying to fight back. We get a great scene towards the end where he's in the building and he's walking by some guy and he's literally, to gain back control, he's literally like smashing his head and running into the wall, and some dude's like, "Are you okay, man?" And he just like, there's a whole great sequence. Sorry, I'm jumping around here, guys. Maybe I'm the one losing control, you know what I mean? There's a great sequence where he finally finds, like, because he gets back, his computer's gone, he's like, shit, I need to go like find another computer. So he's running around, he finds a computer lab. There's one guy in there, and there's a really great sequence where he goes down and like, obviously Elliot is the same person. To us, it's him and Mr. Robot, and we see the glitches happening, but from another perspective, this guy who's sitting in the computer lab just doing his work, he gives him like a sketchy look, because Elliot comes in there and he's looking all sketchy. He sits down, he starts doing the code, and then of course Elliot gets kicked out again. He has to run back again. This time it's like 5 minutes, but he's like sprinting. He gets back there and then he opens the door and he's like sweating, and the guy is like, he's like, "What's going on, man?" Like, he doesn't say anything, but he like looks at him. He's like, "What are you doing?" Because in this instance, what he saw is Elliot come in, start hacking, Elliot then get up, because obviously he didn't see the switch to Mr. Robot, because that's the personality switch that we see, but all they see is Elliot. Everyone on the outside sees is Elliot. So he sees Elliot going down, doing code, freaking out, going out of there, sprinting back in, sitting back down. That all ends up with Elliot actually like smashing the computer on the ground. It cuts back and the guy's like against the wall, and he runs away. So that poor guy who's just trying to do like some work in the computer lab just runs into Elliot and Mr. Robot struggle. So again, that is the theme. Angela starts going home. You know, last we saw in the previously, she talked to Irving. He's like, "Don't worry, the building's going to be evacuated." So Angela thinks she's doing the right thing here. She's like, "We're going to take down the Evil Corp, no problem." There's a quick scene on the subway, and this is when everything is like coinciding. But before we get to that, I don't want to forget that Dom and her like right-hand guy that I don't know the name of, they're trying to figure it out. You know, they're like, "Hey, we have a lead on Tyrell Wellick. He might be at Red Wheelbarrow or whatever." Or I forget where, but basically they're like, we might know where Tyrell is. And she's like, "We're going to go after it." And they go to Santiago, and Santiago's like, "No, you know, we're not taking the word of Darlene," because Elliot texts the address. He's like, "You know, you have an informant that like has betrayed you," and like he's like, "Nah." He's like, "I don't trust that." Obviously, we confirmed it previously that Santiago's working for Dark Army, so no matter what is happening, even though Dom is on to the case, he's like, "No, we're not going to do that." And she's like, "What are you talking about? We need to get this lead. This is a good lead." And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you again." He's like, "We're not doing this." And Dom's pissed off. She runs away, and they're just going to sit at the desk. And right after they leave, he opens up a drawer, takes his burner phone out, and he's like, "Location is burnt. We need to know. Like, we need to get Tyrell out of there." So he gives them the heads up. That's when Irving, of course, takes all the stuff out, and Tyrell's like, "Hey, when am I going to see my family?" And he's like, you know, Tyrell starts to put together the pieces, where he's like, "What time is our flight?" And then Irving's just looking at him, and he gives him an envelope and he says, "Follow the instructions and then burn this when you're done." And he just turns at Tyrell. Great acting by Martin Wallstrom here. He's like literally screaming in his face, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And he figures out that he's been played, and he's like, "I was used and promised to see my family." He's starting to figure out, like, you know, maybe my family's not going to be in the picture. So that's super depressing. But Irving just turns around and he says, "Tyrell," he goes, "I'm sorry." And you can tell, like, no matter, Irving knew the job needed to be done, so he manipulated Tyrell. But you can tell Irving, like, you know, for all his shady shit, he seems like a good dude. And he's like, I'm sorry. He like genuinely feels for Tyrell Wellick, knowing that he had to get the job done, and he had to manipulate Tyrell in that way. So that's kind of sad to see. But basically, Tyrell is like in the basement or the back door of Red Wheelbarrow, and he's got a bonfire going. He reads the instructions. We don't know what's been on there at the moment, but he's got some alcohol. He burns it, like he says. He pours some alcohol on there, and all while this is happening, Dom goes, "Oh, you know what? Let's go get some lunch." And her guy's like, "Oh, I could eat," and she's like, "No, we need to go get some lunch." She's like, "Let's go to Red Wheelbarrow and figure this out." And he's like, oh, okay. So they go to Red Wheelbarrow. She goes in there. She's like, there's 14 employees. There's 4 cooks. But she's like, nothing is going on really. She runs into that girl again who in the season opener gave Irving the, 10 punches and you get a free milkshake. And he was like, oh, well, I'm going to get the free milkshake now. She's like, no, it's your next visit. And I was like, that same chick is still working there. Obviously, we know Red Wheelbarrow is the front for the Dark Army. This is great because at the beginning of the episode, when Elliot is confronting Angela, she's got the Red Wheelbarrow bag in there, which is kind of like, it's a little bit of a tell, like a calling card for the Dark Army. So I'm surprised Angela had that, or I'm surprised that like they would leave that within the vicinity of Elliot, but also they've been working with Elliot for the stage 2 attack, so I get it. But basically he looks at it and he goes, oh, so much hinges on a red wheelbarrow. And it's crazy because like Elliot has that scene and then they flash back to Tyrell saying at the same time where he's looking up in the sky, and it's like everything relies on the Dark Army, and it's just crazy. So it's cool to see those dots connected. But basically, again, sorry guys, I feel like I'm all over the place here. I like to watch these and then record right after, so it's fresh in my head. But sometimes I don't remember things. Sometimes, again, maybe I'm the one losing control. I don't remember things in the exact order. So, but basically, Dom goes in there. She like gets some food, and then she's like, she like sneaks into the emergency exit. No one really notices her being in there because they're all cooking and stuff. But the guy outside is like, I got the floor plan here. She's like, oh, there's smoke coming from the back door. And she's like, oh, there's a fire. She's like, she calls it in. She's like, hey, I need fire and rescue here. She's like, there's, maybe Wellek might be in here. And then the guy in the floor plan is like, there is no back door. And she's like, so they purposely left this on the blueprint. We see on the other side Tyrell Wellek is drinking and he's got the fire. So we know Tyrell's on the other side. We just don't know how close he is and we don't know what's going to happen there. But the music is building. Elliot is like, he's got to get down to the suppression room. All the cards are working for him. And then he finally gets down there and his badge isn't working. And he's like, shit, this is the one that's not working. He pulls up like Notepad on the computer. He's still fighting with Mr. Robot. The whole time he's going down there, he's smashing his head. He's like literally trying to force Mr. Robot out of his system. He's like, if Mr. Robot can switch, can I switch too? Obviously he doesn't have that power yet, but he's on the Notepad and he's like, please help me. He's like, people are going to die. There's no need to move forward. He's like, the paper records are not here, so why would you even do this? And he like shows him, there's like this great back and forth where it's like Elliot at the computer and then it pans around and Mr. Robot, Christian Slater is shown and he's like looking at the computer and he's kind of wrestling with this idea too, where he knows stage 2 needs to happen, but he's like trying to prevent Elliot from it. But Elliot's like, please, I know there's a good side in you. He's like, we got to stop this. And it's just a crazy battle. And then at the very end, he's like, I need you to let me in the store, please. And the music's building. There's a quick scene on the subway where there's like a guy with this mask here, and he holds up Angela, and he's got a gun, and he's like, give me the purse. And Angela just like, she's not backing down because she's like, everything's gonna be good, and she's like, I'm good. And the guy eventually like runs away, and the 2 old women who purses were stolen, they're like, you could have died, like why didn't you give him the purse? And she's like, no one's gonna die today, because she's convinced. She's like, it's all good, like I didn't do a bad thing. And this is all happening at the same time, and Darlene goes to Angela and she like kind of breaks down the door and she's like, what the hell, man? She's like, what's going on? And she's like, you screwed us. She's like, I could tell the FBI right now and you'd be fucked. Like it's crazy. And she's like, no. She's like, don't worry, nothing is going to happen. But she's like, this is what you wanted, Darlene. She's like, you wanted to take down E-Corp. She's like, I didn't tell you to blow up a fucking building. And again, these are all happening at the same time. The music's going and I'm like on the edge of my seat. And Elliot finally, there's like a flash and Elliot like comes back too, and like Mr. Robot like took out the security thing or whatever. So Elliot's in there. He pulls the fire alarm, the suppression's going. He's like, we did it. He's like, everyone evacuates because now there's a fire alarm, so everyone's evacuating. And now apparently the spark won't go out, so Elliot, I think he's like, I saved this building, it's all good. But as we learned, the paper records were not there, they were all moved. And so there's like a triumph, like Elliot saved the day. Great, the episode's about to end, but like as Elliot's walking out, he's got his hood on. he's feeling good, but everyone's like checking their phones and people are like distressed, and he's like, do people know something that I don't? And then at the end here, Elliot comes up, there's like on the sidewalk, there's a bunch of TVs in the window, and it's all over the news, and there's an amazing shot. I remembered this shot from the original one, so I got chills just like thinking about it. Man, it is heart-wrenching, depressing, devastating, whatever word you want to use. There's a great shot where it's like from the TV's perspective, basically, and there's one woman, shout out to that woman, the extra, she does a great job. She's crying, people are in disbelief, they can't believe it. Shades of 9/11, honestly, guys. Just people couldn't believe your eyes. Elliot makes his way through, he's looking, and he just, the sound cuts out, and I had to rewind because sometimes I'm using my Roku speakers and they just will randomly cut out. So I wasn't sure if my sound just cut out or that was the effects. I rewound it and it actually was just the effects. So Elliot's looking there, and we kind of hear a little bit of the news there, but it cuts to the screens and it shows explosions in 71 E-Corp buildings, and there's fire, and it's crazy, and it turns out Elliot's like, oh my god, it wasn't like Dark Army knew those paper records were in there. He's like, it wasn't the one attack, like I was the problem or whatever. And it's just crazy because we get a brief glimpse, and the attack was carried out, and then the credits roll, and then as the credits are rolling, you know, the news is reporting, this woman's like, you know, President Obama's going to get on this, but she's like, this is a deadly attack, and she's like, the death toll's in the thousands, and it's just like, oh, it just hits you, man. Like, you're like, Elliot, we thought we had that triumph, and it's just all of that for nothing. And Dark Army's attack was never on the New York building, and Elliot says, like, I focused so much on this, he's like, I didn't focus on the other buildings, and the explosion went off at all the other buildings. And like they said, the death toll in the thousands, and it's like, oof. It's like, it's obviously it's a fictional attack, but it's so well done that you're like, wow, what a gut punch, what a, like, man, it's crazy. But yeah, that's how the episode wraps. All right, guys, with the score for this one, again, I said last episode it's a perfect 10, the best episode yet. I thought about giving it to this one, but it's going to give a 9/8 for me. Really fantastic episode from start to finish. It's action-packed. It moves the plot along. We get the highs and the lows. We get a little bit of Mr. Robot. We get young Angela. And then, like I said, we think Elliot's done it. He saved the day. It's almost like the season 1, like hands up moment for Elliot. And then right after that is when we get the gut punch of just Elliot thinking he did everything, and it's like, man, Dark Army is a terrorist organization, and they carried out the deadliest attack. And when you hear those credits roll, and you hear the death toll is well into the thousands, and like, man, it hit me again. Obviously, no real people died. This is a show, but man, it's so well done and so realistic that it's like, if something like this were to happen, it's just, your heart breaks because it's just crazy. Yeah, acting, score, the different shots, the lighting especially, I want to point out. There's a quick scene I don't think I touched on with Philip Price and Minister Zhang, and like there's a great scene where he like mentions like Hanging Brain, and you can tell they don't really like each other still, and Minister Zhang knows what's about to happen. And he's like, no, it's time to be merry. Because Philip Price thinks he's out of the woodwork. He's like, oh yeah, you know, you got your UN vote today. He's like, it's all good. And they like make small talk, but then they're like, good. And it's like, you can tell it's just awkward. But the lighting, it's like all purple. Really cool. It's great. That's like the one shot that really stood out for me, just visually as well, other than the last scene really, but yeah, just a great episode. Thought about giving it a 10, but I'm trying not to give everything like crazy high scores. But man, this episode is so good. I couldn't give anything lower than 9/8, honestly. So yeah, that's my score for this phenomenal, crazy, impactful, amazing episode. For the White Rose Award, guys, is anybody going to take the crown from Rami? Because I mean, I can't give it to anybody else. He takes over the episode again. He's taken over the series. He's just at his best again. All the scenes where he's kind of like throw his head against the wall and figuring out what's going on in control. He's sweaty, he's running around, he knows what's at stake, he's trying to save it, he thinks he's relieved at the end. And yeah, I mean, obviously the cast is very strong throughout. Dom was great. Again, Dom is always great. I have not seen a bad scene with Dom, but she just misses Tyrell. Another quick scene I didn't want to forget too, we do see Tyrell Wellick actually get caught at the end, so we don't know if that was part of the instructions, but he does run out of like one of the buildings. And he says, like, we have to stop the attack. We have to stop the attack. He's like, people are going to die. That gave me chills because I was like, that was right before the attack. And I was like, man, Tyrell knew about the attack. And he helped it. And then whether he had a change of heart at the end or whether he didn't know what was going to happen, I don't know. But man, he says, like, we have to stop the attack. We have to stop the attack. And that's when Dom goes over. She's getting like a hot dog or whatever, or a coffee. And she's like, what attack? And then right after that, it hits. And it's like, oof. Yeah, at that point, obviously, there's no stopping the attack, so that's great. But yeah, it's Rami's episode once again. It's been Rami's season so far. I mean, and the season filled with great performances. Rami just continues to bring his best, and yeah, season 3 is by far the best one so far. And it's just every episode has been not even action packed, but just it's just a masterclass of storytelling. And I don't know, I'm running out of words to say or adjectives to describe the show, because it just blows me away like every week, and I look forward to recording every week because I know he's just going to bring it week after week after week. So Rami, well deserving of the White Rose once again in this episode. He was great. All right, guys, that does it. Another episode. Again, trying to make these a little bit shorter, but yeah, the last couple have just been just blow me away. Again, if you haven't seen, if for some reason episode 27 is the first one you're seeing, thank you guys for checking out Project Potter. Thank you for checking out Hello Friends. Again, I'm going to be sad when the show's over. We are slowly but surely going towards the finish line here. There's only, I believe, 3 or 4 episodes left. I think we have 4 more left in this season before one of the final season. So yeah, it's a treat. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege to watch every week. I really look forward to it. But thank you guys for joining me. Thanks for checking out Project Potter. Like, comment, subscribe, spread the word. Go check out Mr. Robot. Go tell your friends to check out Mr. Robot. I know I'm telling my friends to check it out. I really can't preach the show enough. I can't speak to how great it is. And I just love watching it again and really putting a critical eye on it, because it's phenomenal. I'm running out of words. But yeah, thanks guys. And until next time, goodbye, friend.